There are some key visits this weekend.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this special recruiting update episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show. I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. This recruiting update is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com and find over 15 flavors to choose from. If you need one now, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. This will be a very quick one-segment episode of the show. I mentioned that we would come back on Friday and talk a little bit about any news that would surface either late on Thursday or early Friday morning. Well, we got some news, and I don't really have time to be able to conduct a full episode, but I felt like it was appropriate to at least discuss my reaction to the news. Joe Tipton from On3 Sports Recruiting Insider there, National Basketball Insider, reported that Louisville would be hosting two players from the portal this weekend. The first one is Adrian Wooley from Kennesaw State. Adrian will be on campus tonight, is expected today. The 6'5" freshman averaged 18.8 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 3.6 assists on some pretty good shooting numbers. 51% from the field, 42% from three on 5.2 attempts, and 77% from the free throw line. His season was good enough to land him in the first team All-Conference USA list. He was the freshman of the year as well. Really good player and one of the top players in the portal. Now, with him being from Tuscaloosa, it's not hard to grasp why Auburn and Alabama are both seemingly involved in this recruitment, but his first visit will be to Louisville, which is really significant. Will he commit on his visit? I have my doubts, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to hope that he does. He would be a splash level addition for this program, a guy that's going to be able to slide in right next to Mikel Brown Jr. Does a really good job at taking the ball to the basket. Not overly quick or fast, but 6'5", 180 pounds, uses that size and strength to get to the basket. Sort of gives me like Terrence Edwards Jr. vibes in that he operates in such a controlled chaos level where it seems like he's out of control, but he finishes off the glass or is able to take the ball to the basket. But really good three-point shooter. I know that the level of competition might draw some concerns, but you watch him play and what he's been able to do this year, I think that he's going to be able to seamlessly transition to ACC play and be able to take steps forward, especially since he's just going to be a sophomore. That's the crazy thing about it, is he did this as a freshman. He currently is a top 5 player in the portal, was a guy just outside of the top 300 in the recruiting class last year, but obviously outplayed that ranking this year. So that's something that we need to watch, is how is that visit going to go? Will he make another visit? Of course, things change with the wind in the transfer portal. That's something that you have to keep in mind, is that what's true on Friday morning might not be what's true on Friday evening or Saturday morning. So we're reporting things in real time and seeing how things go. But this would be a home run level addition for the Cardinals and a lock to start in 2025-26 26. Another player that's going to be on campus later on this weekend, according to Joe Tipton, expected to be on campus, is Virginia transfer Issac McKneely. If you want to hear our breakdown from this show, we have a couple of episodes over the past couple of days that you can check out for more on that recruitment. The only thing that worries me, first of all, it's great that you're getting him on campus. That's great. He's one of the top players in the portal. The thing that worries me is that Joe reported that it seems like the team that Louisville should worry about isn't so much North Carolina at this point, it's Tennessee, and that the Volunteers are making a strong push for McKneely. And that worries me because those that were confident that Louisville would land McKneely don't really have that same confidence as of right now. That, like I said, these things change so quickly. The good news is that you're expected to get him on a visit. The bad news is that Tennessee is also expected to get him on a visit at some point next week. So, like we saw throughout the portal window last year, expected to take visits doesn't always mean that the player does indeed make his way to campus for those visits. So you have to do what you can to wrap up the recruitment right then and there on the visit to where the recruitment is shut down, he commits to your school, and you move on. Because for the most part, now this isn't always the case, but I would say for the most part, if a player visits your school, leaves without committing, and takes other visits, then there's a good chance that that player is not going to come to your team. That's not always the case, but it feels like for the majority of these recruitments, that's the thing. So getting that first visit is key, but it also increases the urgency to close. Coffee's for closers, and let's hope that that Pat Kelsey is well caffeinated by the end of this weekend. Those are the two players that are expected on campus. It was reported on Friday morning that Koren Johnson is officially in the portal. I know that Mark Blankenbaker tweeted out that he was in the portal earlier this week. I wasn't doubting what Mark said. I just hadn't been able to see it from anyone else. Well, now it is confirmed from a national media perspective. Koren Johnson appeared in 2 games for the Cardinals. Didn't really do much in either game. Had to miss the almost entirety of the season with that shoulder injury. This felt like it was expected, but it still sucks. You wish that he would have been able to have a good career here at Louisville, but just wasn't in the cards, no pun intended. Hopefully that shoulder is able to just recover fully, and he's able to have a good season next year. But it is tough for me to see a situation where he would be a starter next year with some of the guys that they're going after. And I imagine he probably doesn't want to be a player coming off the bench. Another year older, trying to get to the NBA. I don't blame him. So I won't really know how much this affects Louisville until you see Koren play next year. But at the moment, it feels like the Cardinals can upgrade at that guard position. And then to wrap the show up, I think that it is really key to understand, and this has been reported from multiple spots nationally, that there are still some pretty significant names that have yet to hit the portal, that are likely going to. That's something that you just have to keep an eye on, because the players in the portal right now might not always be the highest ranked players here in a couple of weeks. My best piece of advice would be to hurry up and wait, because, at this point, you're just sort of waiting to see who enters the portal. And I mean, you just never know, because if some larger names enter the mix, maybe Louisville turns their attention to these players. So I know that there, is some optimism, of course. There is some concern just because Louisville is facing some tough competition for these players. I would just enjoy the next couple of weeks as much as you can. It's going to get hectic. We're going to do our best to stay in the know and discuss recruiting updates in real time. So just a heads up that, with teams getting knocked out of the tournament this weekend, other players might enter the portal. And it seems like, according to some national media members, national recruiting insiders, they're waiting for some big names to enter. I don't know who that is. Of course, all this episode is reporting on, what Joe Tipton said from On3, what some other people said. This isn't our information, just so we're clear. We're just reacting to it. But I did want to get on here to discuss it a little bit, to drive the discussion in the comments. What do you all think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We will be back next week. If something happens while I'm gone, we'll have an episode on Sunday to discuss. If not, we'll be back on Monday, regularly scheduled content for next week. That is going to wrap up this quick recruiting update episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day.